Hello, and welcome to the 2020 ICM Interfaith Prayer Celebration and Children's Sabbath. My name is Cassandra Henderson, and I am honored to be your host for this evening's virtual event. I've been a board member for the Interfaith Children's Movement for the past 4 years, and a child advocate for as long as I can remember. Along with being a licensed and ordained preacher, I'm a film producer, performance-based artist, scholar, and entrepreneur. I have a deep passion for advocating on behalf of our children, Georgia's children and youth, including the economically and socially oppressed and the most marginalized and vulnerable in our community. On behalf of ICM, we are so happy that you're here to join in prayer and celebration with us for our youth. We're not letting the challenges that we face this year hold us back from taking prayer and action for our children. Our theme this year, as you may know, is our legacy of hope. And this evening, we are honoring the past, the present, and the future of child advocacy. We've got a great event ahead of us, one that includes a tribute to our very own advocacy hero, the late Congressman John Lewis, whose immeasurable sacrifice, commitment to leadership, and final words continue to compel us to make good trouble. We will also celebrate Dr. Marian Wright Edelman, founder of the Children's Defense Fund, who will be awarded our inaugural award, the first annual ICM Marian Wright Edelman Award, right here in this live event. Not only this, but we are honored to have Dr. Edelman live with us to answer questions from our youth and provide some hope for the future of child advocacy. Lastly, all throughout the event, faith, advocacy, and youth speakers will honor and propel our future generations forward by sharing their prayers from their faith communities, as well as their talents, perspective, and voices. So sit back, relax, invite your friends and neighbors. We've got a great event ahead of us. So be sure to like and share with your networks. To start us off, Rabbi Brad Levenberg and Rabbi Samantha Treef from the Temple Sinai will offer our opening prayer.
Good afternoon. I'm Rabbi Brad Levenberg.
And I'm Rabbi Samantha Treef.
What a privilege it is to share some thoughts and words grounded in Jewish tradition at the start of what will be an inspiring program. There is darkness all around, and there is enough tragedy in the world to sink our spirits. From the impact of the pandemic to the injustice in our country, from the marginalization of our brothers and sisters to the pain experienced by so many, there is enough all around us to leave us deflated and defeated.
Even in the midst of so much pain and suffering, there is cause for optimism that we have witnessed in moments of light that have been experienced by so many of us. We've seen people marching for change, and we've seen people sheltering in place to protect complete strangers. We have seen increased philanthropy, and we have seen kind acts of generosity and compassion. While the news may not always be good, it is far from all bad.
We therefore experience the dual narratives, closeness and longing, joy and sadness, optimism and fear, belief that humanity is capable of good and disbelief that we enact such evil.
We have been taught that faith is evidence of things unseen. In Jewish tradition, despite the hardships we have experienced, we still have faith that tomorrow can be better than today, that kindness will be contagious, and that we have the capacity to bring light to even the darkest times.
This, then, is our hope, to receive as a gift the legacy passed to us from the giants who have come before us, like John Lewis, to be inspired by the towering figures making the world a better and more compassionate place, such as Marian Wright Edelman, and to empower those whose journeys are just beginning to unfold, the children born today who will be the leaders of tomorrow.
May we prove worthy of our heritage of justice that has been passed on to us. May we be seen as supporting and encouraging those around us, working to fix the brokenness around us. And may we uplift those working to make sure that tomorrow, and all of our tomorrows, will be filled with light, joy, and blessing. Together we say, Amen.
is a woman in Somalia. The sun gives her no mercy. The same sky we lay under burns her to the bone. Long as afternoon shadows is gonna take her to get home. Each grain carefully wrapped up, pearls for her little girl.
ICM has been an active agent in child advocacy for 2 decades. The impact and reach of the dynamic work of ICM's board, leadership, members, and youth spans the gamut, including engagement with legislative advancements such as the Juvenile Code rewrites, including Children in Need of Services, also known as CHINS. In 2013, Georgia passed one of the most progressive juvenile justice codes in the country. ICM traveled the state as one of 4 partners in the Just Georgia Coalition. Georgia had not reformed its juvenile code in 43 years. It was a 4-year journey full of disappointments, but in the end, we worked diligently to make it happen for our kids. The CHIN section of the code now provides therapeutic alternatives to juvenile incarceration. ICM is an active partner in addressing child sex trafficking. Georgia voters passed a constitutional amendment in 2016 that funds programs which support children who have been trafficked. As part of ICM, many churches, mosques, synagogues, and other communities of faith raised their voices in favor of the amendment. Over 10 years, advocates have ensured juveniles are treated as victims and survivors and not jailed as perpetrators. ICM was very active in passing the Too Young to Suspend bill in 2016, also known as HB 135. Now, as a result of this work, students in pre-K through 3rd grade cannot be suspended without a school review. Why is this important? Because during the 2013 to 2014 school year, Georgia experienced 14,292 children in pre-K through 3rd grade who were given an out-of-school suspension. ICM continues to mobilize our members to voice concern about the school suspension policies in our state that hamper and impede on the educational process for so many of our students. This is the beginning of the school to prison pipeline, and ICM continues to be at the helm of this important work to thwart those efforts and to give our students a promising future. We turn now to Catherine Stanley, longstanding ICM member, educator, and ICM board member, to share her personal experience with the transforming work that ICM has been doing in the lives of Georgia's children with the help and engagement of our youth advocates through our Youth Alliance.
Being part of the Interfaith Children's Movement activities, I actually felt like I was physically doing something. Like, we went early in the morning, like, to the Capitol, and we actually, like, petitioned. Like, we actually, like they saw our faces. They knew, like, oh wow, they're actually serious.
We went to the courthouse and we've changed some laws. We've changed Rachel's law, how victims of trafficking, they used to go to jail, now instead they get help. How we saw they make the laws, pass them. We've helped people who were victims of that. It was really a good experience.
It was very, like, life-changing. Like, not like everybody can't say, oh, I helped make a law and to better people's lives for, like, forever. So it's incredible.
I wanted my students to understand that part of their calling as Christians is to be engaged with advocating for the least of these. All right, so in 2015, I had a student who had gone to the day at the Capitol and may have attended a prayer breakfast as well. And we really started talking about, we were reading, I think, To Kill a Mockingbird, and really started talking about the criminal justice system and what it looked like and what was happening with it. And there was a bill on the governor's desk that would allow those who had been incarcerated not to have to reveal that on initial job applications. And this particular student got really excited about that, in part because his father had experienced incarceration and was having trouble finding work. We had all sent letters, the whole class, we had faxed letters to the governor saying, sign this bill, sign this bill. Hadn't heard anything, and so he made a phone call. And this particular student, he talked a mile a minute, so he called. I said, well, why don't we call the governor's office? So he picks up the phone, he calls, and he's talking fast as the wind itself. And he says, governor needs to sign this bill. Governor needs to sign this bill. A couple of weeks later, the reason I remember the day is that we had decided to shut the school down the next day because there was going to be a snow day. And that evening, it always makes me tear up, the governor to sign the bill. And I called Elijah and I said, Elijah, the governor had signed the bill, and he was absolutely thrilled. Called him at home, his mom was thrilled, they were all thrilled. And it just shows how important the work of ICM is in not only shaping young people and adults, well, not only adults actually, to be advocates for children, but also to help kids learn how to advocate for themselves and for the people in their own lives. So that's been one of the signal memories that I have of, connecting my students with the work of ICM.
Thank you, Catherine, for taking us on that journey into ICM's past. What a wonderful observation on how far we've come and how important our legacy of hope is for future generations. Now is a very special part of our event. As you know, in July of this year, we lost a giant in human rights and child advocacy, Congressman John Lewis. Not only was he a champion for civil rights, but he was also a champion for our children and a supporter of ICM. In 2012, Congressman Lewis served as our keynote speaker for our annual Interfaith Prayer Breakfast. We remain grateful for his service and truly blessed to have had his support. Congressman Lewis fought for others, for equality, and for justice. He served this country faithfully since his youth. Among his many accomplishments, he marched alongside Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the historic Selma March for Voting Rights. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. He is the first African American lawmaker to lay in state in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. He changed the lives of millions of people. from Atlanta, Georgia, to Darfur, and all around the globe. He left behind a legacy to fight for justice and human rights. To honor him more formally, we now turn our attention to our youth, Miles Holmes, Sophia Hook, and Addie Cook.
Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I've done all I can do to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence, is the more excellent way.
We will always remember how we got into some good trouble and marched arm in arm with John Lewis. The 2018 March for Our Lives Against Gun Violence in Atlanta brought out a historic crowd of over 30,000 people into the streets. We wanted to send a message that our society should be doing everything possible to prevent young people like us from having to live with violence in our schools and communities. We knew that John Lewis, one of the biggest heroes of the civil rights movement, was up front leading the march. We told Sophia's mom that we wanted to find a way to meet him.
My mom explained to us that it was probably not realistic to think that we would be able to meet John Lewis. She said that maybe later we would be able to spot him from a distance and perhaps take a picture of him. She also reminded us that it was not a good idea for us to get lost from her in such a large crowd. We weren't really trying to disobey my mom, but we were really excited to try and meet a real-life hero. John Lewis showed so much courage throughout his life. He took so many chances to help make things fair for all people, no matter their race, gender, or how much money they had.
Now, it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last.
We kept moving forward through the crowd bit by bit until we realized we were no longer marching near my mom. We started politely tapping people on the shoulder in front of us and letting them know what we were trying to do. Person after person would smile and let us pass through.
Eventually, we realized that there was just one person between us and John Lewis. This person seemed friendly and kind. When we told her we were trying to meet John Lewis, she said she liked our spirit. She said she wanted us to meet him too. We had no idea that she was State Senator Nikema Williams, who has now been nominated to run for John Lewis's seat in Congress. State Senator Williams pulled us in front of her to march right next to John Lewis. We slipped our arms through his and were able to walk with him side by side for the rest of the march. Our picture with John Lewis even ended up being in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Time magazine. While we were marching with John Lewis, he would sometimes ask us if we were tired or needed water.
We will always be proud of having the chance to be so close to someone who has been such a role model to all of us and taught us how to stand up for justice. John Lewis's courage and commitment throughout his life helped to make the world that we live in possible. Without people like him, it would not even be possible for people of different races like ourselves to grow up as close friends in the South. My mom eventually found us at the front of the march. She would have been pretty upset with us for getting lost from her if we had not ended up marching with the John Lewis. I suppose you could say that getting into some good trouble with John Lewis kept us from getting into some big trouble with my mom. We hope to keep following in his footsteps and working for a more equal world for the rest of our lives.
And that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide.
I've been pleased to support ICM with my time and my financial support over the years because of the important work that ICM does to advance the interests of children.
It is taking what the youth are learning in school about civic engagement and bringing them to the State House to be involved and to advocate. and to push for policies that affected them.
And watching those children of different faith traditions work with one another, talk to one another, overcome barriers, and just really begin at a foundation where adults may not be able to do. Those young people are able to come together, lock arms, and be friends, and not have to be bombarded or bogged down with the things that sometimes get in the way of adults' thinking.
But perhaps even more important to me is the interfaith character of this organization, especially in this era of increased polarization and division.
I think the importance of coming together as an interfaith coalition means having strength in numbers and sharing compassion for the struggles others are facing, and taking a stand on issues that is relevant to children and young people in our community.
What could be a better way than this, than for people of various faiths and various faith communities themselves to get together to further the interests of children in our state?
It's incredible to witness, and I'm very fortunate to be part of that learning, praying, action process, to be a small piece in bringing these different entities together.
Our prayer is that everyone who loves children, who loves responding to the call of the Creator, will make a donation to the Interfaith Children's Movement, and that donation does not have to always be financial, although we want the financial. It can also be your very energy, your very talents. Come, be a part of the Interfaith Children's Movement. We need you. We welcome you.
And now we will have a prayer by Bishop Thomas Brown.
Shall we pray? O Lord our God, who art and who was and who are to come, thank you for the ongoing witness of the Interfaith Children's Movement. We thank you also for the legacy embodied in the persons such as Congressman John Lewis and Marian Wright Edelman and so many others. May we heed your call to action, advocating for our children with a goal to access the quality health care they need, enriching education, meaningful home lives, and just opportunities to realize their God-given destinies. Help us to stand up for right and justice for all of our children, regardless of their respective gender, race, ethnic heritage, and social standings. Bless the families of our children, those who love, nurture, and model the way before them. Inspire our children, much like Congressman Lewis, to dream dreams of a better world, a world where right triumphs over wrong, good overcomes evil, and justice outdistances injustice. May we help our children to learn early to get into good trouble, the good trouble of honoring the dignity of their peers and all whom they encounter, the good trouble of being good neighbors to all, especially those in need, the good trouble of advocating for the voiceless and the marginalized in our society. God, help us to inspire our children to get into good trouble of being and giving their best in all of their endeavors. Help us to advocate for our children such that they may assume the humble, compassionate, yet persistent spirit embodied in the likes of Justice Ginsburg, who had the courage to stand for the causes of equality and justice for all. Now, God, may our children realize that indeed all lives matter, especially the lives of those who have been systematically marginalized and oppressed. May this movement, this interfaith movement, help our children to know that just as a steam is effective when contained in the walls of a cylinder, so are their youthful energies when disciplined in the contours of their faith. Keep us now in your divine care as we continue to navigate the maze and tragedies of this pandemic. Embolden us to cast our balance during this election season with a sense of our continued commitment to the care for and nurture of our children, even as we seek to elect leaders who are pro-children, who are committed to ensure our children before birth and after birth possess the resources needed for their journeys. Oh God, you are the one who is the author and finisher of all good trouble. And so we commit this prayer into your care and our children now and forever in your care. You who are our Lord, our great shepherd, and our liberator. Amen.
Now, we are so excited. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Our opportunity to see our young people engage in a question and answer with none other than Dr. Marian Wright Edelman herself. Following the introduction of our speaker by Dr. Luther Smith, we will turn our attention to Makari Tarpley, Jabari Henderson, and Chase Marable.
In 2001, when the Interfaith Children's Movement was being conceived, we had many uncertainties about how we would be organized and obtain the resources for a statewide movement that advocated for children. However, we had at least two certainties that compelled us forward. One, that the well-being of Georgia's children on matters of health care and juvenile justice and education and foster care requires the involvement of people whose faiths profess compassion and just treatment for children. And our second certainty was, since Marian Wright Edelman had already committed to come as our featured speaker for the prayer breakfast that was going to launch this movement, we had the nation's most prominent and influential advocate for children supporting our mission. We could not ask for a more impressive leader for the prayer breakfast, an event that would introduce this movement to the public. We were inspired in our effort to launch this movement in a big way, and we did. We gathered at 7:30 a.m. with over 400 in attendance and all the Atlanta news media present. Dr. Edelman's message delineated the crises children face and our capacity to make a difference in their lives and the lives of their families. Marian Wright Edelman energized us to pursue our mission. After her address, and with 15 minutes left in the program, the cell phones in the room began to ring, and we received the news of a plane flying into the World Trade Center. On that September 11 morning, we of course received no media coverage about the prayer breakfast, but with Dr. Edelman's inspiring address, we were clear that our mission was a bulwark against the emerging interfaith conflict and any retreat from attending to the ongoing crises of children. Over the subsequent years, Marian Wright Edelman continued to support our work. She addressed our prayer breakfast through both video greetings and an in-person address. She had the Children's Defense Fund to provide us resources for our faith communities to celebrate children's Sabbaths. She invited us to participate in the 5-day Samuel DeWitt Proctor Institute conferences that focused on activism, trainings, and uplifting experiences with sacred texts, spiritual songs, and prophetic messages that emphasized that sustaining a movement on behalf of children requires the spiritual energy and joy we have in our various faiths. Dr. Edelman, your life inspires us. Your work as a civil rights attorney, the founding of the Children's Defense Fund in 1973, the legislative and community activism that has made a difference in the lives of millions of children, your books, and over 100 honorary degrees and numerous awards given in recognition of your impact on our lives, including the Albert Schweitzer Humanitarian Prize and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award. In addition to declaring that your life inspires us, Marian Wright Edelman, we are so grateful to declare that your care for the mission and work of the Interfaith Children's Movement inspires us. Thank you. Thank you for your support over these years. And thank you for again contributing to this 20th prayer celebration and Children's Sabbath event. And thank you for giving guidance to our future by responding to the heartfelt questions of our youth.
Thank you for your servant leadership over many decades, for being so supportive of the Children's Defense Fund's work in multiple ways, and you have just been an invaluable partner. So, let me get to answer your questions.
What has kept you hopeful in your advocacy for children?
My childhood upbringing. My daddy was a Baptist minister. My mother was the church fundraiser, the church organist, the church head of everything. And I feel so blessed to have the parents that I had. And I simply do what my parents and my community co-parents do. It was all about faith in action, that you made sure that you took care of those left behind. I had 12, 13, 14 foster sisters and brothers. When I was growing up, you'd wake up and if you had 2 pair of shoes, you have one the next morning. My parents saw old man Riddick, who was a very distinguished old preacher, but who we now know had Alzheimer's disease when he was diagnosed. And my parents started the first home for the aged in our hometown for black citizens. And my parents passed that service and commitment to their children. And my brother, and now his children, since he passed, continues to run the Wright Home for the Aged. We took in 5, 10, then 15. I think I probably had 20 foster sisters and brothers over the course of our years. And it was nothing strange to have another child in your bed, on your twin bed next to you when you woke up the next morning. But I do exactly what my parents do, and I feel very blessed. And the theme of my childhood is, you see a need, don't ask why somebody doesn't do something, why don't you do something? And so I think that the Children's Defense Fund is an extension of that. And I just feel so grateful for the parents I had, the community co-parents I had, and the faith of my parents and community co-parents who put that faith in action by making sure that those left behind would have a hope and help to get to realize their God-given potential.
You've accomplished so much in your life. What's one accomplishment that brings you joy?
I think there are many sources of joy, but I guess I would celebrate 2 things, if you'll permit me. I think that there are 35 moral goals in the books that CDF has played a critical role that has enabled millions of children who are disabled to have a right to education. We've reformed, or been key in reforming the child welfare system and expanding child care for working parents. There are 25, 30 laws in the books that would not have been there if we had not advocated for. So I'm very, very pleased that billions and billions and billions of dollars are now invested in making sure that children have a right to education if they're disabled, that children in the child welfare system have a better chance of succeeding in adulthood. And so that legislative side, enforcing those laws, I think we were able to build a child advocacy movement that addressed the budget process, because whoever controls the money in this country and controls the budget at the state and national, local level controls the policy. And that has been wonderful. But the thing that I love most are the things that are on the ground. It's our Haley Farm programs, it's our Freedom Schools, it's our Beat the Odds programs for children left behind. Because I think that my childhood, where I had many foster sisters and brothers, taught me that you have no right to leave any child behind. And so my favorite things are the children who've been beating the odds that we celebrate every year, and who are now doctors and lawyers and Peace Corps volunteers and are doing lovely things. But the bottom line is that I do what my parents and my community co-parents did in my childhood. And I hope that all of us in our generation will make sure that our children carry on these same kind of commitments to others.
What advice do you have for kids? Kids, kids, kids!
Life is not about just yourself. You're here to make the life of others better than you found it, and they found it. I think that services are what you pay for living. I think that, helping others is the reason we're all put on this earth, trying to ensure a just system of education, of health care, of all the things that we want for ourselves, for other people's children, is why we're here. And so I think that the work of the Children's Defense Fund, the work of child advocacy, the work of the faith community like you, make sure that no child is left behind and every child has a chance to get a healthy start and a safe start and a fair start and make it to adulthood and give back to others. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
This year, we are presenting the inaugural Interfaith Children's Movement Child Advocacy Award to Dr. Marian Wright Edelman for her commitment towards advocating for children. We also want to honor her for her commitment to the Interfaith Children's Movement and all of her support. The Interfaith Children's Movement's Dr. Marian Wright Edelman Child Advocacy Award is presented to Dr. Marian Wright Edelman, whose leadership has enriched the lives of millions of children through activism for public policies and community programs, and exemplified how faith sustains the work of compassion and justice. We are so honored to present Dr. Marian Wright Edelman with this award for her efforts and her commitment towards the advocacy of children.
And thank you for this award. I'm very honored that you would name it in my honor. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your witness, for your advocacy. And we are going to make this country put its children first, because if it doesn't, it's going to fail.
And now, a prayer by Shahida Sharif.
Good afternoon. I'm grateful for the opportunity to offer a few words of prayer and reflection for our current and present reality that we are going through at this time. With the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We thank God for the forethought to be able to utilize technology and have this platform as we're normally having breakfast and breaking bread with one another. Hopefully you're at home in your comfort of your homes and spaces, and good company and food. We pray for our elders and our sheroes like Marian Wright Edelman for the hard work and the sacrifice that she has committed to establishing, to giving a healthy foundation to build upon for our children nationwide. We ask God to grant us His mercy, His wisdom, and support during these challenging times, to keep us focused on the goal of building upon her legacy and maintaining our faith and hope for our children, to keep making that good trouble for them to live in a better, peaceful, and safer world. We ask for His protection and guidance during these unprecedented times, and the moral courage and fiber of strength to stand firmly upon our beliefs and principles amidst these trials. May our rich legacy that we have been inherited with be reflected in our work, and that we're charged with, and to carry us through. Amen.
I am often reminded of the legendary Whitney Houston's famous song, Greatest Love of All, which she champions the idea that our children are the future leaders, future congressmen and women, future advocates. At ICM, we have what's called the Youth Alliance that pushes that idea a little bit farther and says not only are our children our future, but that children can advocate and lead today, to begin their leadership with their voice, their education, their learning, and their activism and advocacy. While we journey now from past to present and now to future, we turn our attention to our young people, lifting up the very ideas and concerns that they hold right now, pointing us to look at how we live today in order to ensure a better future for them tomorrow. Let's hear now from our young people.
Oh, hi there! I did not see you standing there. Well, look. They asked the big kids to say what they care about. No one even asked if what I care about. I care about the community, the country, my friends, and my family. Here's what the big kids had to say. They're talking about voting.
It's so important to vote.
So there are a couple reasons why you should vote.
We have the right to vote.
You know, you're able to speak your voice.
It works to put in officials that really cater to you and your community.
Our ancestors fought and some died for the privileges we have today.
You're able to put people in office that you think will actually represent you and give you the best outcomes for you and your community.
So you can be counted and get the resources that you and your community need.
Go out and vote.
Don't forget to vote.
So make sure you go out and vote.
And if you plan on mailing in your ballot, get started early.
And make sure that you get your voice heard.
How to care for the homeless in a pandemic.
Since coronavirus, everybody's lives have changed drastically. I would normally be out in the streets of Atlanta giving back to the homeless by providing them with hot meals, warm clothing, and care packages. But considering that the virus has placed restrictions on person-to-person contact, it's kind of hard to do that. By donating those specified clothing items such as gloves, scarves, jackets, blankets, to organizations that have been put into place specifically for this reason, I can still continue to be a change in my community, but remain safe.
Environmental justice, we've got to take care of the earth.
Have time to avoid climate catastrophe. Now is the time. The time to do good is now.
We're striking for our soil, for our water, for our air. I think it's important to bring young people together about issues they're passionate about, especially when it impacts all of us. I'm really glad and I'm happy to see Atlanta on the map for this movement because it is an international movement, and if we want to get anything solved, we all have to stand together as a global unit.
Social justice and injustice.
Today I would like to talk about social injustice.
The current events in the Black Lives Matter movement have been extremely disappointing to me. It has become clear by the day that property is valued more than Black lives in today's society.
I've noticed that in the community today, there is a lot going on with race and the Black Lives Matter movement.
When a lot of people were protesting around George Floyd's death, there was more outrage about damaged property than the injustices Black people face in America, and that needs to change.
How I'm trying to change this community. Here, me and my roommate have tried to strengthen other people's opinions on minorities and people of color.
Although I didn't participate in protests for fear of coronavirus, I've been very active on social media with signing petitions, creating signs for protesters, and spreading information about current events.
I attended a peaceful protest at Georgia State Capitol to support Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who was being sued for trying to save Black and brown lives during the COVID-19 pandemic.
If this society is to change for the better, we need to do better with having uncomfortable conversations, and we need to do our part with spreading awareness.
What I would also like to do is spread the good news, sing and praise the Lord, just like Jesus did. Jesus loved all people. Black Lives Matter.
Entrepreneurship. You know how to be a boss.
I love basketball, but I also enjoy reading. I'm hoping to start a group called Books and Basketball, where a group of kids can talk about a book that they all read, and based on how the meeting went, can play a game of basketball. I'm hoping to gather kids from underprivileged areas because I know basketball is a big sport and reading is also very important. And I hope to combine the two into one.
Self-esteem. In other words, finding value in who you are.
Hi, I'm Kemery. I'm 12 and I'm a weird kid. I think the only way that I feel able to love myself is by being the odd soul that I am. I feel like some people don't quite understand these things yet. So I'm here to speak up for the misfits. I don't always wear what people expect me to wear, think like they expect me to think, do what they expect me to do, or say what they expect me to say. That's weird. And you're weird too, whether you want to hear it or not. But those weird things about you, like eating raw leafy greens and root vegetables when you get nervous, or wearing sunglasses inside simply because they match your outfit, those things are what make you special. Every day the sky is a slightly different color, like a fingerprint. It's never been the color it is right now. That makes the sky special. Makes you want to appreciate it more, to take more of it in. All because it's a little bit weird.
See, kids care about real things. Our faith in ICM helps us do something about it.
Thanks to all of you, every one of you with Hearts for Children, for joining us at this 2020 ICM Interfaith Prayer Celebration and Children's Sabbath. Many of you expressed some sadness that this year you didn't get to be in place at 7 a.m. at the temple for our usual in-person prayer breakfast. But seriously, we all miss the ability to greet each other personally. I hope this virtual Children's Sabbath has inspired you to keep going as an active advocate for children. We have faced so many challenges as a nation this year with COVID-19 rampant in our land. Childhood issues that were already difficult for many children have become quite unbearable. But those issues didn't just appear. Educational disparity, wealth disparity, child exploitation, domestic violence, these issues didn't just appear. They are deeply rooted in our society. I believe that we who have a heart for children have taken a wonderful step today in gathering and advocating for future generations. This is the moment for me to ask you to invest in the work of the Interfaith Children's Movement. Children are humanity's future. They are moving quickly to replace our generation. And each of those children was born with a gift for the world, each one. We need to support them early in life so they can offer that gift. We agree with Marian Wright Edelman that every child must have a healthy start, a head start, a fair start, and a safe start in life. And we agree with John Lewis, we need to work together and get into some good trouble for children. So we ask you right now, invest in ICM's mission to advocate for laws and policies that improve children's chances for success in life. Make a donation. You may have donated already, and thank you. And perhaps your heart is leading you to donate again. Listen to it. We've tried to make it fast and easy. Visit the link now. It's in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Give whatever support you can. You can do it right now while I'm talking. I won't mind. Donate $20 for 20 years that ICM has advocated for children and the 20 years to come. Donate some other amount. The money you give helps ICM build awareness and action in the interfaith community and make sure interfaith voices for children are making a roar that can't be ignored. The money you give supports our partnerships with other child advocacy organizations so we can really grow this roar for children. And the money you give supports our Interfaith Youth Alliance, the amazing youth you heard from this evening, and many, many more. They need nurturing support to speak their truth. Your financial contribution supports this effort. Donations help immensely, but I hope you'll also make a commitment to join us as a member and perhaps as an A-team member. The A stands for Action, for Active Advocacy. There's a link at the bottom of your screen where you can sign up. One of my favorite things about being an ICM member is that I get to make friends with people of other faiths while I help future generations of Georgia's young leaders to flourish. The Interfaith Children's Movement is unique. We are both an interfaith and an advocacy-focused nonprofit. That makes us a bridge to the worship communities of many faiths who are called by that faith to love and protect children. Together, we can create real, sustainable change for our children. Together, we can nurture more networks of neighboring worship centers that actively collaborate to support children and families. Together, we'll make some really good trouble that makes the future better for our children, those future leaders and citizens of America. I am so overfilled with joy and hope because you have joined us. I hope you will join us in our live Q&A, which will occur immediately after the event has ended. The information on joining the Q&A is on your screen. Thank you for attending tonight and again for your hearts for children. Let's seal our faith in action with a prayer. To our Most High, Creator, Giver and Sustainer of life, your grace and mercies are everlasting, and we thank you for that. We thank you for those who have gathered collectively in celebration of our 20th anniversary, a celebration towards the advocacy work helping Georgia's children to be whole and to be well. I thank you for the collective work where we're coming together, we're planning together, we're working together, and we're doing something together. Bless each individual, bless our efforts, but most of all, bless Georgia's children. This is my prayer. Amen. Now I turn you back to our host and the rest of our wonderful prayer celebration and Children's Sabbath event. Thank you and God bless.
And now let's turn our attention to hear a musical interlude sung by none other than young actor and performer Makari Tarpley shares her song, Fly Away.
Faith in me, I'm pretty on the inside. I'm always dreaming, dreaming, dreaming. If I spread my wings, I can fly high. If I open my arms, I can reach for the sky. If I throw away my fears, I'll never need to ask why.
We're excited to welcome former board member Nwandi Lawson to offer our closing benediction, a Baha'i prayer.
I'm Nwandi Lawson, a member of the Baha'i faith community. You know, we say it so often that it might appear trite. Children and youth are our future. And while we know this to be true, The nature of the future that's being created will depend to a large extent on the quality of relationships being forged among the generations. What are those of us who have passed through the period of youth willing to sacrifice to provide loving guidance and a framework for action and spiritual growth? One that is not stuck in the past, but that benefits from our experience with constructive resilience. It's not enough to leave the young people to themselves saying, "We've done our part, they'll take it from here." The Universal House of Justice, the International Governing Council for the Baha'i Faith, has written, "Children are the most precious treasure a community can possess, for in them are the promise and guarantee of the future. They bear the seeds of the character of future society, which is largely shaped by what the adults constituting the community do or fail to do with respect to children. They are a trust no community can neglect with impunity. An atmosphere needs to be maintained in which children feel that they belong to the community and share in its purpose." I offer this prayer for the children and youth of the world. O Lord, make this youth radiant and confer thy bounty upon this poor creature. Bestow upon him knowledge, grant him added strength at the break of every morn, and guard him within the shelter of thy protection, so that he may be freed from error, may devote himself to the service of thy cause, may guide the wayward, lead the hapless, free the captives, and awaken the heedless, that all may be blessed with thy remembrance and praise. Thou art the mighty and the powerful. Abdul Baha.
This has been a tremendous event tonight. We are so glad that you joined us for it. We are particularly thankful for everyone who has participated in any part of making this happen, and also any part of the magnificent work that ICM has been endeavored in for the past 20 years. Hats off to all of our members, our board members, our leadership, our staff, our volunteers, our young people, our youth advocates, our parents, our community leaders, educators, faith leaders. We thank you all so much for your continued support and for the giving of your time tonight and every time you show up for our children. We thank our sponsors of this event. We challenge you and champion you and support you in getting involved in ICM, giving to this amazing cause and furthering our reach and our impact to Georgia's youth in need. So here's an opportunity for you to take the next step with us and join the efforts of ICM. ICM is stepping into advocacy by providing a special kind of training designed to help you and your faith community become more actively engaged and make good trouble on behalf of Georgia's children and their families. Details of these 2 stepping into advocacy opportunities can be found along with the registration link on the ICM website, www.icmgeorgia.org, and click on the Stepping into Advocacy link. Our work is important, and we can only do it with your support. Thank you again for all that you've offered us and for being with us for this, the 2020 ICM Children's Sabbath and Prayer Celebration.